Jay Wheeler woke up to the sound of honking cars and the hum of city traffic. He rubbed his eyes, trying to shake off the grogginess, and sat up on the edge of the bed. The room was a mess, and a woman lay asleep beside him. Jay grabbed his pants and pulled out a golf club, practicing a few swings as if it were the most normal thing to do first thing in the morning. The woman stirred awake, and Jay, without much ceremony, told her he was leaving. She asked if he'd buy her breakfast, knowing full well he wouldn't. He smiled, said no, and walked out the door. Jay's day didn't get any better from there. He headed to a club, but the bouncer stopped him at the entrance, reminding him of the chaos he'd caused the night before. Jay shrugged, claiming he couldn't remember a thing. The bouncer wasn't amused and listed off all the embarrassing things Jay had done. Jay laughed it off and left, heading to a horse race instead. But luck wasn't on his side. He lost his bet and shook his head, muttering to himself that he couldn't afford to run out of luck just yet. Next stop, at a pub, things got worse. Mr. Vincent, a man Jay owed $37,000, showed up with a burly enforcer. Jay tried to talk his way out of it, but his card got declined, and Mr. Vincent gave him until Friday to pay up, or else Jay's bad luck landed him in front of a judge, who sentenced him to work as a janitor at a psychiatric hospital. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a chance to stay out of jail. At the hospital, Jay kept his head down, mopping floors and avoiding trouble, until he met Daisy Kensington. She was a patient, barefoot and shy, with a quiet beauty that drew Jay in. One night, Jay overheard Daisy talking to someone in her room. He rushed in to find Franco, another janitor, pretending to be a doctor and trying to take advantage of her. Jay punched Franco and comforted Daisy, warning her to be careful. But Daisy, feeling safe with Jay, followed him when he left the hospital that night. Jay was horrified to find her outside, barefoot and carrying her belongings. He tried to convince her to go back, but she refused. Feeling guilty, Jay came up with a plan. He'd take her to his brother's wedding and introduce her as his nurse girlfriend. The wedding was a mix of charm and chaos. Daisy's innocence won over Jay's family, but her honesty caused a few awkward moments. At one point, she blurted out that Jay had borrowed her dress from a stripper, making Jay's mom laugh, but raising eyebrows. As the night went on, Jay's father pressured Daisy to tell the truth about how she and Jay met. Overwhelmed, Daisy started hyperventilating. Jay rushed her outside and confessed to his father that he was a janitor and Daisy was a patient. Furious, Mr. Wheeler stormed off, and Jay and Daisy left the wedding in a hurry. Back on the road, Jay and Daisy's journey became an adventure. They traveled in a caravan, stopped at a fair, and even had a run-in with the police. Along the way, Jay taught Daisy how to drive, and she surprised him with her boldness. But as much as Jay tried to keep his distance, he found himself falling for Daisy's pure heart. Eventually, Jay decided to take Daisy back to the hospital. He knew it was the right thing to do, even though it broke his heart. Before they parted ways, Jay kissed Daisy, realizing he had fallen in love with her. Daisy, who had never experienced love before, felt the same way. In the end, Jay was arrested, and Daisy was taken back to the hospital. But Jay didn't give up. He went to great lengths to see her again, even getting himself admitted to the hospital just to be near her. When Daisy was finally released, Jay was there to meet her. They embraced, and Daisy looked up at him with a smile. "You're standing on my feet," she said. Jay laughed, apologized, and took her hand. Together, they walked away, ready to start a new chapter. Their story was one of unexpected love, second chances, and the power of being true to oneself. Jay, who had always run from responsibility, found purpose in protecting Daisy. And Daisy, who had spent her life in isolation, discovered the joy of being loved. In the end, they proved that sometimes, the most unlikely people can bring out the best in each other.